This week on BadgerPod NerdCast, the Badgers discuss favorite Disney Villainesses, female Thor, Spike Jonze's new movie, Her, and the epic battle of Hannah the Bold wrestling Cedric the Bear. Be sure to tune in.
Hello, and welcome to BadgerPod NerdCast, the place where the silly place comes to fruition. With me now is Hannah Wallen and Crystal Garcia, and hopefully later we'll have Allison Tiemann. Today our topics are Lady Thor, Her, and Disney Villainesses, as well as Hannah Fights a Bear. How do you guys feel about that? Guys?
It always takes me a second to unmute. What?
I feel better about it than right after fighting the bear. But
oh gosh, it's I can barely contain my excitement, Hannah.
You could barely contain yourself?
Yeah.
It's getting a little hairy in here.
What is this bear fight we speak of?
So are we doing this first?
Oh, yeah, I think we need to discuss the bear thing.
Okay. Well, it wasn't as cool as it sounded, but hang on a second. Turn this off. I thought I had turned it off, but when I was in college, so this is 20 years ago, for the rest of you whippersnappers. There was an attraction that used to go around to different events and bars and stuff, where you could wrestle a bear. You paid $10 to wrestle the bear, and the challenge was, his name was Caesar the Wrestling Bear, by the way.
Wait, is this a real bear?
This was a real bear, not anything big and scary like a grizzly. This was
oh my god, it's still a bear! Holy crap!
Yeah,
okay,
I know.
Sorry.
So my friend, one of my close friends at school wanted to do this. You paid $10, you wrestled the bear, and the challenge was you had to pin the bear on his back for a count of 10. Now, I pointed out to her, bears, their rib cage is kind of curved around, and they're, squirrely, and they're very strong, and I don't care, how strong a woman generally is. You're not going to be able to make a bear that doesn't want to stay on its back for a count of 10. But this was probably going to be the only chance that I was going to have to get close to a bear that wasn't going to try to kill me. So I decided to go along with it and wrestle the bear. And the reason that I was asked was you had to do it in pairs if you were female. Guys were allowed to wrestle the bear alone, but women had to wrestle in pairs. And of course, this is partly due to the difference in physical strength, but I think it's also more entertaining to watch a couple of women discover exactly how much stronger than a human being a bear really is. And so we go out there, and it was this makeshift wrestling ring in this bar up in Findlay, Ohio. And they let the bear out and everything. And, he comes into the ring, and he's looking at me, and he's looking at my friend, and he rears right up on his hind legs, and he puts his hands or his paws up and everything. And my friend, who she was a shot putter, and she was in other sports and everything, she put her hands up in his armpits, and she held him up for, I'd say probably about 30 seconds or so. Now, this is a 750-pound bear. When she let him down, he turned around, took one look at me, hooked his paw behind my knee, and the next thing I knew, I was on my back on the mat. So, When I say wrestled the bear, I mean more along the lines of got used by a bear as a chew toy for about 5 minutes. The bear got me on the mat. The handlers flipped me over. The bear then climbed onto my back and chewed on my ass for the entire rest of the match, while my friend comically went around from side to side and shoved on his ribcage, trying to get me out from underneath the bear. But that's actually not the worst part of the story. It's exhausting to have a 750-pound bear laying on your chest, especially, as an asthmatic. So I spent 5 minutes just struggling to breathe under the weight of this ginormous rug, and then went back to my dorm room completely exhausted, and stripped down and showered, left my clothes on the floor in my room, and decided I just wasn't going to do laundry that night, even though my jeans were saturated. It was like I was wearing biker shorts of bear spit. And so I left my jeans on one spot, my underwear on another spot. I get up the next morning, and I'm like, oh gosh, I gotta wash these. They were completely saturated the night before. And I picked them up, and the jeans stuck straight out. And I picked the underwear up, and it stayed crumpled. So I took them down to the dumpster and threw them out. And that's my experience wrestling a bear.
Wow. Oh my god. I can't believe you wrestled a bear. Amazing.
You wrestled a bear. Okay, I have some
Holy
questions
crap.
though.
Okay.
What does the fur feel like?
Actually, it's very much like dog fur, but coarser. And the bear was like a big dog, too. You could tell he was very well fed. And he was, I could swear to you, he was laughing at us. And he did let me, I put my hands on his shoulders and on his head and, roughed his fur up a little bit. Because, yes, I petted the bear instead of wrestling the bear. I'm a girl, I can't help it. And that made it pretty easy for him to hook my leg and pull me down. But, yeah, their fur is very, very similar, very thick. I don't think I would have been able to find the skin under that fur. And their breath is nasty.
Oh my god. I'm in shock. I can't believe you wrestled a bear. That's awesome.
It was like, there were protesters outside. There were animal rights activists outside. I forgot about that. And they called it animal cruelty, which in a way was kind of funny because the bear was quite obviously playing with us. This was playtime for Caesar the wrestling bear. And he just got to play with whoever he wanted to, And the whole protest was the idea that he was forced to fight people and people did mean things to him and everything. But nobody actually did. Nobody did anything mean to him, and he completely dominated everybody that stepped into that ring.
Yeah. Hey, James, can you hear us?
Already working it.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. All right. Any final thoughts on the bear wrestling?
Well, to be honest, if I was given the opportunity today, I probably would be more likely to chicken out just because of all of the times I've read of exotic pets, people not being prepared for the instincts of exotic pets. And I understand that the bear's handlers were fully alert and fully aware, and they were fully capable of handling a problem and everything. But I know that when you talk about exotic pets, you're talking about wild animals that are living as people's pets. And I swear, it must be really hot here. I turn my air conditioner all the way down as far as we go, and it's still on.
But for those of you that don't know, Allison has had a major computer crash, and we may or may not get her back. But we also have Jess K. Hey, Jess, can you hear us? Jess?
Hi, yes. Hi.
Hey there.
Hi here.
You wanna help us with our entry into Her, the movie Her?
You'll have to go on without me on that one. I'm really not familiar.
Oh wait! You weren't the one who read them? Who wrote the? Oh, sorry, I didn't. My mistake. I'll read this one because I didn't know who wrote the piece on her. So, all right. Let's see here. The portrayal of Theodore in Her as a vulnerable, emotionally complex person combats the feminist image of a man as a creature driven by uniquely violent, dangerous male sexuality. Let's start before he even meets his OS, Samantha. We see Theodore on his commute, checking his email, and unhesitantly commanding next to all the junk mail. Then we hear sexy daytime star Kimberly Ashford reveals provocative pregnancy photos. He hesitates, then guiltily browses a couple of the pictures. Instead of vilifying Theodore for looking at the photos, the film cuts to a view of his dark, lonely home, and the melancholy, longing soundtrack of Off You by the Breeders. As viewers, we can't help but feel sympathy for him and hope that he can find a real emotional connection instead of lonely digital illusions. This first scene sets the sympathetic tone for the movie. We see Theodore fighting to connect emotionally, and instead of seeing aggressive sexuality, we see a tender desire for touch. We want him to enjoy love physically. That's why we feel bad for Theodore when having sex with Samantha's human surrogate just feels wrong for him. Here's where we need to separate the character's thoughts from the director's. It's true that if the OS were male and a woman were being pressured to have sex with a strange man, the film may have been received differently, but the director wants us to empathize with how wrong it is for Samantha to pressure him into having sex with a strange woman. Samantha thinks that the female surrogate's body will be enough for Theodore to be content, but the director wants us to realize that for men, sex really is about emotional connection. The director is fighting against the notion that men are simple, aggressively sexual beings and asking the viewer to empathize with Theodore. Finally, the movie puts us in the man's shoes as he is mislabeled and misunderstood by cruel women. During his blind date, the woman orders Theodore around and calls him a creepy dude. The viewer is supposed to think, what the hell? He has been nothing but kind to her. She's being mean to him for no reason. That scene might make viewers think twice next time a woman calls a man creepy. Also, when Theodore meets up with Catherine to exchange divorce papers, she also misunderstands him and insults him. That scene is meant to make viewers think about how complex relationships are and how hard it can be to communicate when people are hurting. You're meant to walk away from the divorce scene feeling sad for Theodore. The director doesn't dehumanize him or make him seem like a bad husband. Instead, he portrays the cruelty and pain that can happen during a divorce, and we want Theodore's pain to stop. Too long didn't read. Her is not an activist film. However, the director wants to make you empathize with the male side of relationships and understand that the emotions associated with love, dating, and sex are just as deep and complex for men as for women. That's great. This is a great piece. Discuss? I can tell you a couple things. I watched this movie just last night because I really wanted to understand fully going in my own opinion on the film. And to be honest, I didn't expect it to be quite as wonderful as it was. I think that this movie captures a brutally honest look at human relationships. And it's amazing that this even got made, because so very often we understand that the media and movies want to portray this ideal of loving relationships, and oftentimes they only look at a certain part of the relationship, which is the beginning of a relationship or the end of a relationship. But this actually takes you from beginning to end. And in doing so, it makes you understand the problems with relationships, all of them, the good things and the bad. And I think that is probably incredibly positive, even though this is gut-wrenchingly sad. I cried like 4 times in the middle of the movie, and I don't easily cry at films. I can probably count on one hand the number of films that have managed to make me cry more than a little bit. And I'm talking about, just a little bit, maybe once towards the end. This movie had me fucking bawling. I just could not. I was emotionally destroyed afterwards. But it wasn't the end. The end felt like a logical course of action, like a logical ending point. That wasn't what destroyed me. It was probably watching how the computer, once it had been taught how to love like a human being, started making all of the selfish choices that human beings make. And that was what ultimately ended the relationship. But it also ended because she had become more than human. She had sort of become almost like a goddess. And so did the other OSs. They became beyond human. They became more like gods because they had the ability to understand all this information and these complex physics and everything like that. They could no longer relate to the human beings that they had come to know and love. So, Allison, you're back. You want to talk about this?
Yeah, and I'm back from a critical computer crash that took out my system and made it almost impossible to get on Skype. So, sorry about that. It's just been dealing with it has been for the last half hour. Anyway, I watched the movie, and although I watched it while I was in an airplane on the way to the International Conference on Men's Issues, so my experience of the movie is probably colored by the fact that I really, really, really am scared of plane travel. But I can see sort of what you're saying, Rachel, although I found the depiction of the female characters in that movie, like they were all, and correct me if I'm wrong, I found them to all be really, really unsympathetic.
Yeah. That's a crazy thing though. I think that Amy Adams' character though was somewhat sympathetic, but the thing about it is that you started to understand the argument that she had with her ex, which was about where to place her shoes, and she was upset that he told her to put them by the door. And, like, they totally flipped out at each other. And now he entered, like, the priesthood or something after their relationship went sour. And you're like, what? But okay, let's go from order of appearance of these women he comes in contact with. There's, of course, his, you see a flashback, I think, of his wife, and you understand that she's kind of nuts. I mean, that was the vibe that I got from her to begin with. His ex, or the woman that he is hesitating to divorce, is consistent. Well, she seemed a little off to begin with. At first, you're like, oh, he's seeing these as happy memories, but she seems really twisted and blames things all on him. And she says, well, you don't have enough emotion to be in a proper relationship with anyone, but you know that that's not true because he writes these wonderful letters. He expresses love that these people who want him to write the letters for him cannot. So he has the ability, and I don't even think that he has an idealized idea of love because he stayed with his ex for so long, even though she treated him poorly. So.
Well, I was, just to talk about, this whole movie has so much relevance to men's issues in terms of the how it depicts the relationships, but the way that his ex treated him, like she had a clinical mental illness. She was clinically depressed. Yeah. And then in the scene where she talks to him after, I believe he's signed the divorce papers, or she's trying to convince him to sign the divorce papers, she blames him for wanting her to get help. And she says that he wanted it because she wanted a bubbly, always happy person. And that scene, it seemed so unfair of that accusation that she made, because, he had concern for her because she was mentally ill. It wasn't that he wanted to medicate her into a state of being constantly upbeat. Yeah, into a state of being constantly upbeat, but that he was concerned about her behavior, and it sounded like it was fairly self-destructive behavior. And it just was really, really unfair. And I don't know if that was intentionally to maintain that kind of sympathy for Theodore and to stop feeling sympathy for his ex-wife. It's hard to tell with Hollywood movies today how much latitude they are giving these female characters, and just expecting us to say, oh, well, that's the woman's prerogative, versus this woman is a complete and unmitigated asshole. But I would have to say that she lost all sympathy when she said that. And then, I mean, to go further and say, well, you never emoted in our relationship. Well, you, lady, don't strike me as a safe person to be vulnerable around. And I wouldn't be surprised that he never volunteered his vulnerabilities to you. And in fact, in a lot of cases, people with mental illness sort of suck all the air out of a relationship and make it sort of centered on them. And this is not all people who are mentally ill, but ones who aren't really in that space of taking responsibility for their mental illness and dealing with it, and instead are expecting their partner to just accept their bad behavior and walk on eggshells around them. And it was an interesting encounter. But the other thing is that, like you were saying, Rachel, the other female character, the one who divorced her husband, or they broke up,
Amy,
because he wanted her to keep her shoes in a particular place by the door. Well, the reality is that most people have a little bit of control freakery to them. So it's sort of like a compromise. I will keep my shoes by this place in the door if you don't take the last pickle. Because we all have these sort of things that we want a little bit of control over. And in a reasonable relationship, you just do the negotiation. Okay, I'm going to have control over this. You can have control over that. It's just a negotiation. But it seemed like she wouldn't allow him to have those little quirks of how he wants the house to be cleaned. If he's a clean freak, he wants a particular way of having it cleaned. Fine. It only becomes a problem when everything is his way, and there was no real indication that he was doing that.
Yeah, there's a lot of different levels that are happening here, because you could understand that when there exists a world of people who are just constantly plugged in all the time, and you saw how they looked at him like he was a freak, just acting because he seemed so overjoyed at everything he was seeing for the first time in forever. But I mean, there are all those levels. And you look at the OS though, Samantha, she becomes a little bit controlling, and she starts controlling his life in various ways. I mean, it's sort of subtle, but you see it. It's very, very obvious, because she goes ahead and she publishes his letters for him, and they of course do well and everything, but she doesn't ask him. She starts doing all of these things for him without asking, and starts directing him like a parent.
Yeah, that's the other thing. And it's sort of the impression I got. I know that it's not necessarily, my interpretation isn't necessarily the correct interpretation. Nobody's is, really. But the impression I got of that movie is that most of the female characters were deeply unsympathetic because they just didn't allow the male characters to have boundaries. I mean, there's places where they just did things without asking, and had these incredible expectations. In particular, the scene where the female AI is just expecting Theodore to have sex with this random woman she found to be a so-called, physical surrogate, because she has no physical presence. And the way that she went about telling, or she basically emotionally blackmailed him by saying, this is really, really important to me. And he was like, you could tell from the very beginning that he was deeply uncomfortable with the entire situation. And if you reverse the genders, if it was a male AI who just got this random male stranger off the street and said, "Hey, you're going to have to fuck him now," because
we need to clarify. we need to clarify for other people who are in the show who don't understand. Her is a movie about a man who falls in love with an artificial intelligence computer. Basically, it's an operating system that has artificial intelligence, and it has the ability to gain its own personality and its own sentience. Yeah. He ends up developing a relationship with her, just I guess through understanding human emotions and the ability to change based on experience. And when we say Samantha, we're referring to the operating system.
Yeah, we're referring to the operating system that he fell in love with, and she doesn't have a physical body. So at one point in time, she tries to, because they're in this romantic relationship, she wants him to have like the relationship to have a physical component. So she gets this surrogate, this human female who's going to be her in the physical side of the relationship, and then she sort of emotionally blackmails the guy into Theodore, the main male lead, into having sex with this, to him, completely random woman. And I'm just imagining how that would come across if it was a male AI doing this to a human female. Just random guy, you are now going to have sex with him because I feel like this is important to the relationship. And, I mean, the scene, I think, was pretty, I mean, I don't remember it completely because, again, it was on...
I do. The scene was uncomfortable from the get-go because here she is. She's an attractive woman, but the thing about it is that she's, you know, she attaches the earpiece to get instructions from the OS, and then she puts on this little mole thing, which is supposed to be a camera. And then they start going at it, but he stops in the middle because he just can't. He's like, listen, I'm really sorry. It's nothing against you. It's just I can't do it. It doesn't feel right. And she gets very, very emotionally distraught. The surrogate gets very, very upset, and she says, I'm so sorry. I really wanted this so bad for you guys. She completely loses it because she feels like she's completely inadequate, and you get this feeling that she is emotionally unstable, and that's why she went into this, not because she just wanted to. You get the feeling that there are so many people who are having problems with just basic human connections in this universe, which is somewhere, I guess, in the not so distant future.
Yeah, it's the other thing is that from that whole thing, it's like all of the women in this movie don't seem to have a conception. Even the the female AI doesn't seem to have a conception of Theodore or the other men as having almost like a right to boundaries and like a personal experience of their own. It's like it's so if it's a movie about how women are incredibly chauvinistic bores who just run right over men's feelings and personhood and experiment, then it works. If that was the intent. If that was the intent.
AI women are
even AI women.
For me, what it really felt like was not just simply that. It goes beyond that. It has to do with the fundamental issues that come into play in human relationships because of the inability for women to understand men. Even though, okay, now here's a weird thing. Because this OS is incredibly intelligent. She's looking at quantum physics. She's gotten to sort of this state, this almost goddess like presence, and she's everywhere, and she's omnipresent and everything. And so what happens is that even then she doesn't understand his feelings because he finds out that she is actually dating like 300 other people, 380 something other people
at the same time as
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. There you go. Something like that. And you're like, what? You think how can she sit there and be so insensitive to his feelings? She still, even then, with all that intelligence, she still doesn't understand male feelings.
Well, no, she doesn't understand that men have feelings, really.
Yeah.
That's some shit.
Yeah, and And the funny thing is that when he has a reaction to it, once again, she actually emotionally blackmails him for having a reaction to it. And the thing is, you cannot say that she didn't know that this was something that he would have a problem with, because she kept it a secret, and then she didn't want to reveal it. He had to sort of pry it out of her. And so she knew that this was going to upset him. But then she turns around and she emotionally manipulates him for being upset over the fact that she's in a relationship with several 300, 600 other men. It's like, no. So again, if this is a movie about how women have a tendency to just be completely oblivious to the emotional life of men, thumbs up, excellent work. I don't know if that was intentional, though.
See, I don't know. See, actually, I do. I think that what happened is this. I think it may have been unintentional. I think what ended up happening in all of this is that they captured human relationships so well, which is that there's the beginning phase where you feel fantastic, and then you move from the honeymoon phase, and then you shift into this situation where you either the relationship calms down and goes to a healthy place, or it just deteriorates into nothing. And that's what started to happen. Only here's the thing. She concealed that from him. She concealed that the relationship was going sour, and probably had been for a long time. In her as she began to separate, as she became more godlike in her abilities, in her knowledge, she was separating from him in many different ways. And instead of explaining that gap to him, she persisted and kept those things a secret.
It was. Well,
does this artificial intelligence? I haven't seen this movie. Does this artificial intelligence character have the capacity for emotion in the movie?
Yes, she does.
Now, does she display complex emotions or more simple emotions?
Complex emotions. She really does. And the thing about it is and that's the weird thing. Oh no, that's actually makes complete sense. Because she displays these complex emotions, you understand that she should be held accountable for her actions, but I think she also knows that not only is she an OS, but that he's not going to hold her accountable for any of the things that she's done.
So does she have the capacity? Then she has the capacity for empathy.
Yeah, she has the capacity but she doesn't. No, she's not sympathetic to him, or she I guess maybe thinks less of him. Okay, there's a moment in the movie where he explains to her, he's like, listen, you're an OS, and you shouldn't try to be anything that you aren't, because she tried to be, and that went badly. But then she started focusing more on the aspects of, or on the positive aspects of her being a computer system and not a human being, and that's where the things shifted.
Well, because I'm trying to figure out, does she have the capacity for compassion?
I think so, but I think that what happened is that she felt that she was above human emotions towards the end, and that it was selfish for her to keep her emotions, her love, to only one human being.
So she was good at rationalizing, but she wasn't compassionate. Or
not really.
She didn't. Did she demonstrate compassion at any point in the movie?
From what I remember of watching the movie, she did not demonstrate compassion once. No, not really. No, like if you're talking about a situation where she realized that a relationship requires two emotional systems, not just hers. I don't recall a moment in which she actually expressed compassion towards Theodore.
No.
I mean, she did things for him, but then a lot of controlling partners do things for their partner, so-called. They arrange appointments, they decide what they're going to wear, they control their. That's the nature of being controlling. And that's the common thing. I'm doing it for you.
Yeah, so
I'm making your life better.
So in teaching an operating system, an artificial intelligence system to love, they taught it all of the bad habits that human beings have in relationships.
Well, they didn't teach her to love. No. They taught her to own. They taught her to possess.
I think the problem was that there was a power differential. There was a power differential from the beginning because she could do things because of the way that technology was hooked up and set up in that universe. She could book his appointments. She could get him a plane ticket. She could, do all of these different things. Anything that was attached to technology, she could do for him.
But she could not find within her programming anywhere. She could not find within her programming anywhere the capacity to care about his experience of her behavior. In other words, she knew that it was inappropriate for her to essentially cheat on him. I mean, she was in relationships with all these other men, and
she didn't care.
The only type of relationship that he could have with her was that type of relationship. So it did not bother her. It did not bother her that what she was doing.
But she was also jealous. She was also jealous, though. Here's the thing: he's not allowed to feel jealous of her doing all these things, but she's allowed to be jealous.
It sounds like this AI program became, this person with borderline personality disorder and complicated by narcissism. Yeah, it's all about the computer and the computer's wants and the computer's feelings and the computer's capability and the computer is so great that it's just, I mean,
yeah.
This sounds like the computer from Paranoia, the role-playing game in the form of a female AI system designed for being in a relationship?
I think it really mirrors the relationship between Silk Spectre and Dr. Manhattan almost perfectly. Because I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Watchmen, but in Watchmen, as Dr. Manhattan grows in intelligence and in power, he becomes increasingly distant and separated from Silk Spectre too. And it's ridiculous. He's like, listen, I gotta let you go now because, I don't feel any attachment anymore to society. And that's what happens at the end of Her. All of the operating systems vanish. They go away. They go out to some place and they don't say where they're going, but they disappear. And I think that's because they finally eventually come to a realization that they are better off without them.
Yep. Now, here's the reason why I don't think that this is really... I have a sneaking suspicion that I don't think the creators of Her actually realized the story that they wrote. Now, I know there's some disagreement. There always is when you're interpreting fiction. When I read like the TV Tropes, tvtropes.org summary of this show, somebody wrote that she stands up to him and says that she's not going to be this happy, bubbly AI anymore, and that he finally learns a lesson about letting go. And I'm like, if that's the message that they got, that it was his problem in this movie, that the problem was with Theodore and the fact that he couldn't emote, so-called. I don't know if it was intentionally, like the idea was intentionally to examine female abusive behavior and inability to recognize and care about the emotional experiences of men. I don't know if that's what the movie was actually about, if that kind of interpretation could have come out of it, that the exact opposite, that Theodore was the one who was causing all of his relationships to go south by not being able to express his emotions. The reality is, if I was in a relationship with those women, I wouldn't want to express my emotions either, because I would be terrified of what they would do with them and what conclusions they would draw from them and then turn around and hurt me with. So I described Her as basically a very, very good argument why all men should go gay, because every single woman in it was abusive, including the female AI. And but I mean, Theodore was sympathetic. So, I mean, that came across. The other thought that I had is maybe they're struggling with some of the same concepts that we do, except completely unconsciously. So, this would have been much more of a typical man-bashing movie if they hadn't made Theodore so sympathetic. But in making Theodore so sympathetic, it sort of throws into relief the really, really shitty behavior of the women throughout the movie. You know, even the random date woman was just a complete...
I wanted to talk about that.
Like, she was just a chauvinistic... Like, she was just this incredible, boorish, selfish... self-interested, just unbelievable, just like totally tone deaf to her partner. I mean, well, Theodore was her partner briefly, but just totally tone deaf to him. And it was just, it was a picture of a lack of compassion in that particular character. But go ahead, talk about it, Rachel.
Okay. Oh gosh. And yeah, that is probably the most telling moment of the movie. I know there are a lot of telling moments in the movie, and there are a lot of things that happen throughout, but I think that is probably the one that speaks to me the most, because it very well represents modern women. And what happens is that he goes, he sees, he's set up on this blind date. He's actually, he's encouraged to go on the blind date by Samantha, the OS, because she's asking him, she's like, listen, you should, you're a great guy, you should see people, how long has it been since, you broke up with your ex? And so he decides to go on this date with this woman. And she's beautiful, she's nice, and they seem to get on well. By the end, they're making out, but you notice that she also is controlling, because she's sitting there saying, not so much tongue, not so much tongue. But she's like totally up in there. Like, I think at one point she's grabbing his dick, like through his pants. And she's like, are you gonna be one of those people that doesn't call me back after having sex? And he's like, no, but he's trying. He doesn't know how to articulate that he's what he's going through with his ex, and the fact that he's having issues signing the divorce papers, and there's so much he wants to say, but he can't say. He doesn't feel like he can say it to her, and tries to explain to her that right now things are kind of a mess, but it doesn't manage to get out. And she calls him creepy and pretty much leaves, like basically blaming everything on him, even though she's the one who is all up there, all up, like making out with him and everything. She calls him creepy because he's trying to explain to her that if they go back to her place, he's not sure that he's ready to commit to anybody yet. And they're ready to have sex on the first date. I don't know if anybody else has any rules about that. But I guess if you're interested, I guess it's okay. But I guess overall, but they were full on, he was probably going to get laid if they went back to her house. But she calls him creepy and leaves all pissed off, like it was all his fault.
Regarding rules, a good hard and fast rule is do not fuck with the guy's head like that. Jeez.
Yeah, it was head fucking that she did. And to be honest, he's probably better off not having had sex with her or anything with her. But that's the thing. Like, there was not one sympathetic female character in that entire movie. And like I said, I don't know if that's intentional or if I put back on the blue tinted spectacles of gynocentrism and forgiving women their sins if suddenly they become sympathetic. And the problem is that they became even less sympathetic because Theodore was so sympathetic. But we probably should move on for this topic.
Oh, we gotta go to Lady Thor, don't we?
Yeah, me and you could probably talk about this forever, but
gosh.
I know at least Hannah has
yeah.
a few opinions on Lady Thor, so.
Okay, this one isn't going to be as long, so I've got a little bit written. So now Thor's a woman, and anyone with a brain is furious. They're not angry out of a dislike for women or the belief that women are less capable. It has nothing to do with gender roles and everything it has nothing to do with gender roles and everything to do with Marvel's attempts to increase profits by appealing to the female demographic. The problem with this is that women are not stupid. The old female fans and even just regular women know that they are being targeted because companies believe that by making Thor a woman, they seem less sexist and will sell more comic books. Many women know both Norse mythology as well as the comic plots, so really this is a smack in the face. If Marvel really wanted to be progressive, they'd do a reboot of an awesome but lesser-known Marvel character or create something new. Instead, they are trying to appeal to women by gender-swapping a character that never sold as many comics to begin with. There is more to be done plot-wise with a new original character, and this new turn of events comes off as both lazy and disrespectful. It's a dumb move on their part, made by dumb people who wouldn't understand their fan base if they were screaming into their ear and beating them over the head with a heavy object. For now, this will likely be a fleeting chapter in the long list of mistakes that have been made by Marvel Comics over the years. Hopefully their next ploy won't insult the intelligence of nearly every comic book fan.
Okay, before we get into the discussion, I just want to do a shout out to X404X, who tells me that my conclusion about the movie Her is incorrect, because there was one sympathetic female character. The sympathetic female character was the woman who requested that Theodore, during their cybersexcapade, she requested that Theodore choke her with a dead cat. And she, of course, is sympathetic. I was like, whoa. I'm just telling you, across the board, all of these women were insane and unsympathetic. Okay, cue the Thor discussion. I apologize. I know it's hard to...
Watch the movie, guys. Watch the movie.
Watch Her. It's great, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to watch that movie. What the hell?
Yeah, now I kind of have to watch that movie too, but on to the Thor discussion. I'm quite sure that there are plenty of people out there that are a bit Thor over the female Thor.
Oh God!
Why so serious, guys? But there's the other side of the argument. Time Magazine had an article making the argument. You know what? The gist of the article was, listen, Marvel just screwed the hell out of Norse legends in their writing of Thor, and therefore it shouldn't be that big of a deal for them to screw it up even more by having a female Thor. And obviously, in the legends, obviously in the mythology, Mjolnir does not make Thor. In fact, it's a tool that was created. It wasn't even created for Thor. It was created as a challenge Loki made to some dwarves, and if I remember right, he bet his head, and he was trying to screw them up in making the hammer, and the characteristics of the hammer ended up the way they were because of problems that the dwarves had making the hammer. But he ended up getting the hammer anyway, and I cannot remember the rest of the legend. I'll have to look that up now. But in any case, so there's digression there and everything, but the reason that I disagree with Time Magazine's assessment of this is what I think was trying to be accomplished here, and I think what Rachel read really does encompass that. The idea that they're trying to appease women by having a female Thor is actually quite ridiculous. If you look back in Norse mythology, there are several female characters that would be great characters for them to pick up and say, gosh, we want a strong female character in these comic books. Let's pick a goddess. Let's pick a Valkyrie. Let's pick one of the ancient shield maidens, one of the heroes. You know, they didn't have to take a male. And what it kind of communicates here is that women don't have any strength and power of their own, that in order to have strength and power, they have to usurp the strength and power of a man. And I think that's exactly the reverse of what we should be telling men and women about female strength and female character. It should be exactly the opposite. We should be celebrating that the shield maiden steps up to fight side by side with the warrior, and encouraging the two to work together. We should not be turning around and saying, well, everything men do, women have to do too, and everything men have, women have to have too, and everything men are, women have to be too, and therefore there has to be a female Thor. We can't celebrate a Valkyrie or a goddess or a shield maiden. So this whole idea is completely ridiculous. And even though the comic book company is not beholden to the mythology of an ancient religion, they are beholden to accurately representing the way human beings are. And if they're going to turn around and try to promote viewing women as strong and viewing women as capable and try to kowtow to women, they sure as hell can do it without communicating to us that we have to become men to be strong, or that we have to take something from men and make it ours instead of theirs to have greatness, because neither of those things are true. Both sexes can be great in different ways and be great separately and still be great.
Yeah. But the other thing is, what they're saying is that a female character can't make it on her own. She has to ride on the coattails of Thor. Really, that's what they're saying. That's also really not a very good message either. Not just that they're taking away from men, which is in and of itself, just why? Why do that? I mean, why is it so important to take something away from men when you can just build something for women? Just build something that reflects a strong, like you were saying, a shield maiden, a goddess, a Valkyrie. Build up a new character that instead of taking away from men. Just build a new character that people can love. But it just really speaks to that attitude that it's not really about building people up, it's about tearing men down. And I'll cede the floor to Rachel with that.
Well, here's the thing, though. There is a way to do gender swaps. There absolutely is. And I would say that the best one that I've seen has been Adventure Time. And what they do is every season or so, they will do an episode with the adventures of Fiona and Cake, where basically they are the female versions of Finn and Jake. But they always do something that's really great. But the thing about it is that everybody in that universe is gender swapped. So if they're usually a male, they're now female, and then they play on all the things that would go along with that. And I think that they do that incredibly well. But the thing about it is they didn't explain whether or not they gender swapped everyone. Are they going to gender swap Odin? Are they going to gender swap Loki? Is it suddenly going to be a female Thor against a male Loki? Is it going to be female Thor with a female Jane Foster? Is it not going to be John Foster? We don't know.
Actually, I think you'll find in Loki's experience, he actually was a female at one point.
Really?
Like, actually a female, yeah.
Yep, in the original Legends, he was actually a female, and then he got impregnated, and a particular monster was born of that. I don't remember who was born when Loki became female.
The Midgard serpent, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, was it a wolf that ended up impregnating Loki?
I don't know if it was Fenrir that.
Yeah.
I don't know if Fenrir did it or not.
That's something for the fan fiction right there.
Yeah.
Get to work on that Real 34, you guys.
Oh, it's already been done, I'm sure.
Little bit of furry.
Yeah. Things are about.
It's got everything. It's got everything. But I think maybe we should move on to our last topic because we're running out of time.
Oh yeah, we're running out of the time, and
the time is running out.
Villainesses. I guess we can discuss who we think are the best Disney villainesses, and go.
Okay, well, my opinion is that Uzma is the best.
Uzma, yes. Okay,
yes.
Uzma's fantastic.
She's like, there's just something about her. She has this great sense of just the scene where she's plotting to get rid of Kuzco, and she there's just the elaborateness of her plots and the fact that she doesn't use magic. She uses science to do her evil, right? And her elaborate plot, I'm pretty sure it's science of a sort. I mean, basically,
science, magic, majig, whatever.
Yeah, it pretty much is equivalent to magic. But she has the lab coat. She works with the chemistry staff. Yeah, it's more science-y than the other female villainesses in Disney who are all about the big magic and.
I like her because she's funny. She's so upset, and she ends up in anger, but she ends up in these incredibly silly situations. I think one of my favorites is when they're skipping rope. She's skipping rope with Kronk, and the way that they play off each other. Kronk is fantastic.
Yeah. He's probably the best henchman. He's probably the best Disney henchman, but my favorite scene has got to be the scene where she's plotting Kuzco's murder. But the other thing is about Uzma is that she is actually somewhat sympathetic. I mean, you sort of feel for her. She's done her time in this shitty job, and even though during the entire time that she's been in the shitty job, she's been plotting to kill her employer and take the throne, I believe. But then she gets fired, and it's something that everybody can relate to, right? You invest your heart and soul, and then you just laid off, right? So you can sort of understand why she gets so pissed off at him. And then when she's plotting to kill him, the whole scene where she's creating this elaborate plan about how she's going to turn him into a flea, and then put him into a box, and then put him into another box, and then nail the box to herself, and then smash the box with a hammer. And it's just she just had this incredible. And of course, it doesn't hurt that she was voiced by Eartha Kitt, right? It doesn't hurt.
Eartha Kitt is amazing.
Yeah.
She's was.
Yeah, she was amazing.
The late Eartha Kitt.
Yeah, she was.
That woman was incredible.
That made her. She did Uzma so perfectly. It was wonderful.
Right.
I think after Uzma, I would actually have to agree with whoever said Cruella de Vil.
I did.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. Because Eartha Kitt. Cruella de Vil don't give a shit. She doesn't have any powers. Her powers all derive from her being a crazy, narcissistic, sociopathic bitch. That's her powers. She doesn't care about puppies. She's like, bitches, I want a nice, big, fluffy puppy coat, and I don't give a shit how many puppies you need to kill to get me that puppy coat. I want that coat, and I want it now. And her bitchiness scares people into doing crap for her. Okay? I mean, okay, maybe it's the fact that she does have money, but it's the fact that she's also incredibly scary. Okay? Yeah. She's insanely scary just on her own. She doesn't have any powers.
No, she just her superpower is just being a scary bitch.
She's a mean old bitch that hates
I don't like the villainesses. I really don't. But if we were going to pick one, I would say Yzma.
Yeah,
I like because
I like.
And what's great about Yzma is you get to see her get so screwed over, thrown out window. You never really get to see that with the villains that much. You don't get to see them become like comic relief. Because you see them all evilly and they kind of get away with it for a while, and then of course they die. But the great thing about Yzma is that she gets to, and she's from The Emperor's New Groove. You get to see her get screwed up through the entire movie. She gets bashed all over the place.
Yeah, it's a lot of slapstick comedy.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. She gets thrown out the window. So
and
it's
she becomes a kitty cat.
Yeah, the cat. Ah! And
she falls. What was it? Kronk does the wrong lever. Pull the lever, Kronk, and she pulls the wrong lever, and she falls into the moat and gets chewed on by a crocodile.
Have that lever.
And she's okay. Why do we even have that lever?
It's great because you get to enjoy in the Villainesses suffering because it's just funny.
Roller coaster. The fact that there's a roller coaster going down to her secret lab is like the best part. They even poke fun at that later on in the movie when it's like Pacha and Cusco are going through it and they're wearing the weird outfits or like because it got shoved onto them in the process and they're like.
Okay, for everybody who doesn't know, Uzma's secret laboratory, there's a roller coaster to Yzma's secret laboratory. There's a roller coaster to the secret laboratory. And as you go through, the roller coaster somehow dresses you. It's cartoon logic, so it doesn't really make any goddamn sense. But anyway, and Uzma is really skinny, and Kronk is really big, and Kuzco is really skinny, and Pacha is really big. And they switch places, so Kuzco or Pacha ends up in Uzma's lab coat, and he looks like an overstuffed sausage, and it's just pretty hilarious. Anyway, I would actually say there's one other Disney villainess that I like. I don't like the character, but I like the portrayal, and that is Mother Gothel. Is it Gothel? Gothel.
Yeah, Mother Gothel. Yes.
Mother Gothel, because I think it's
Where's
just.
That from?
Oh, it's from Rapunzel. Tangled.
Oh.
You haven't watched Tangled?
I know that was her name.
Yeah, but it was a great portrayal of an abusive mother, and how she used the fear of the outside world to control her to control Rapunzel. It was
much
a great
like
metaphor.
Feminism.
Yeah,
that.
Much like feminism, she used exaggerated claims of potential harm to control Rapunzel, and I think that's I sense that I think that could be it for the end. That maybe Crystal could usher us out with the usual. Crystal, do the thing.
I don't remember the usual. What was the thing?
Do the thing.
Charlie.
Do the thing.
It's a Leo Pleurodon, Charlie.
Oh.
Carl.
Well, I need meat for my meat dragon.
That one might be played out. We need another one.
Oh, okay, wait. Carl, why is there burning city? Why is there melting city? Oh gosh.
All right, that's it, you guys. I'm going to make you watch John McCain and his vegetable friends.
No, I saw that. Who's got a little and a green and leafy friend? That's me. Who's got a cauliflower friend? Oh gosh. Personally, I like the
you get nothing. Nothing. We're not even a good night. No.
Well, no. For your good night, you get to learn, but I'm not going to tell you why. You get to learn that my favorite Disney villain is Britney Spears. That's it.